$35 at launch. Well, now we know why people were angry. Making a game as a solo developer is not a small or insignificant task by any stretch of the imagination. It is time-consuming, difficult, and often discouraging. However, once it is completed, I can imagine there is a wonderful sense of achievement to that, especially if your creation does well with the masses. That being said, the second you do share your game online, you become the target for scrutiny, especially if your price tag outweighs the perceived value of your game, which is the trap that pro show jumping fell into. Upon launch, this game had a very high price tag, $35, and as a result, it ended up on the wrong end of people's ire, which is understandable. When we purchase games, we are instantly weighing the price of the game against its value. If it's lacking, players will obviously get angry and start mobs, possibly with pitchforks. The sad thing here though is this isn't actually a bad game. It has a lot of value and a surprising amount of passion that went into it. With so many horse games that feel like they're just ticking the boxes and trying to milk as much out of us as possible, this little game reminded me that games can be passion projects. They don't need to be big or grand or have huge budgets. They just have to have value within themselves. But I'm getting ahead of myself. This is going to be a full review of Pro Show Jumping. You guessed it, show jumping game about, well, horses. It's not a very big game, but I think there is enough here to warrant some discussion. There are some interesting game mechanics, some cool ideas, and also the question I want to pose is, when is a game ready to be released? Please remember to like, subscribe, ring the bell, and thank you to the developer of Pro Show Jumping for answering my questions and just being very nice. And of course to my Ko-Fi supporters for being more awesome than writing a real-life aggro. That would be amazing. Let's get into it. Visuals for games are important for two reasons: hook and immersion. The hook is about catching the audience's eye. The more interesting, appealing, and atmospheric a visual, the more likely you're going to want to go into the game. If that visual captures the feeling and atmosphere of what that game is trying to convey through environment and interaction, you will remain immersed and the visual will enhance your experience. With that being said, the visual can be a turn-off if it's not up to a specific standard, unfortunately. A lot of great games suffer from this unwritten law of the human brain. We want pretty things, really pretty things. Great games are often ignored or panned for not having a visual that appeals to a mass audience. And I hate this. Never judge a book by its cover, and never judge a game by its visual. I'm looking at you, Stray. But yes, visuals play a very important part in games. But with that out of the way, where does Pro Show Jumping fall in? It has what I'd like to call a functional visual. It neither hooks nor immerses. It only serves to communicate the information the player needs to have. Games like Tetris, Flappy Bird, Pong, Match 3 games, and any other gameplay-focused game tend to lean towards this style to ensure that the mechanics are properly communicated and not getting lost in overly stylistic or busy visuals. You don't need to immerse someone playing a Match 3. You just need to ensure it's appealing enough to make them stay. Most of this is usually done with sound effects and pretty explosions and this theme song. Which is now going to be stuck in your head for the rest of the day. Enjoy! And that's sort of the impression I'm getting from Pro Show Jumping's visual. It's there to communicate the information you need. The horses and environments are simplistic, with basic textures that sometimes pop out for some reason. The menu feels like it was dropped in last minute. The pause screen is just a transparent black background with a few options on it. The bars at the bottom are 3 colors with some design going on there, but nothing too big. Even the opening screen feels very cheap. It just doesn't want to invite me in. And unfortunately, although gameplay-focused games don't need flashy visuals, they still need to hook and invite, which Pro Show Jumping does neither of because it's too bland. But basically, the visual is functional. It doesn't need to be more than that, but it will turn a lot of players off. As much as I hate Stray, it's popular because it has a cute cat and a meow button. Next up is audio. The music is quite cute, the pole knocking is very well done, and it sounds almost exactly the same as it does in FAI competitions. I think he might have actually just grabbed a soundbite from that. Again, I love that. But I would like an option to turn off the sound as I play these gameplay-focused games while listening to podcasts or audiobooks, as I think a lot of people do. This really annoyed me because I wanted to rewatch this Mongolian documentary and I couldn't because the music spoiled it. I just want to hear how Genghis Khan killed everyone without someone whistling in the background. Is that so much to ask? And finally, the commentary was a nice touch. It added a bit of spark to the game, although it wasn't really as intriguing as it could have been. It's pretty dull and clearly AI.
Next up, Kasali.
Bad luck today. Great jump. That's not something we see very often.
It does at the very least mention the horse's name, which is nice, and they react correctly to what's going on the screen, but I don't have a lot more to say about it. Now, the audio is made with AI, but I don't mind it as much here, as the game was made by one person, and AI is a way to cut some financial corners. If the game had been bigger and had a lot more funding, I would have not been as forgiving. I'm trying to break into voice acting, and AI ain't making it easy, Jana. But with all of this out of the way, let's get into the main event, the gameplay. You thought I was gonna say horses, didn't you? This game is not a career game. I'm starting the gameplay section with this statement because I was pretty disappointed by this. Career games are some of my favorite games. I've played games about tennis, golf, cars, and even WWE. There is just something extremely satisfying about creating a character and fighting your way to the top. WWE had some of the best types of games back in the day, I swear. But Pro Show Jumping has none of this. No character creation, horse creation, or starting small and going big. It is a Grand Prix jumping simulator, a game where you ride FEI courses on horses. And that's really it. It is not necessarily bad, but it's not exactly riveting. You do have the championship option, which is a series of 4 courses, one right after the other, and you try and get the best and the least amount of penalties. But with no rivals or serious weights behind these championships or even context, it's really just a longer version of the single course gameplay. But as disappointing as this was, the gameplay isn't actually bad. The entire gameplay is focused on 3 things: speed, curvature, and balance, which all affect the stride, which in turn affects the quality of the jump. A stride is measured when the front leg of a horse lands, there is a cycle of movement, and the front leg lands again. That is a stride. No, not that a stride. Striding in turn is measuring distance with the unit of 1 stride. The amount of strides in between obstacles, that's the striding. Simple. Now, at the bottom left of the screen, the 3 bars represent the 3 attributes: speed, curvature, and balance. You will notice that when I am adjusting speed or turning, the balance is automatically also affected. If the horse is too imbalanced, the jump quality will drop and the horse will knock a pole. This is shown via the horse's legs actually dropping in animation, which is a really cool touch. On top of all of this, there is a 4th factor, the horse's technique. This sort of determines the horse's experience and confidence in a way, and will determine how much they will automatically adjust the stride while approaching the jump. So even if you have a slightly poor stride, the horse can still adjust and save your butt. It's not as difficult as it sounds, and it is pretty intuitive once you get the hang of it. I really enjoyed the gameplay, because it did feel more complex than just hitting space to jump. I will say that it's not as fun as, for example, Tales of Rain Ravine, but there is a sort of satisfaction to this game when you get a jump correctly, and especially if you get a clear round. I felt pretty awesome when I got my first clear, not gonna lie. The type of jump will also have an effect on the speed you have to go. A vertical or single pole will ask for less speed, and the oxer, twin poles, and treble, 3 poles will ask for more speed. But your adjustment will all hinge on you actually having an idea of how many strides there are between jumps. If you know, you will be able to adjust the horse's stride accordingly to land as close as possible to the jump before takeoff and get the best quality of jump. The amount of strides between obstacles can be seen on the map of the course before you even enter the arena. The developer has painstakingly recreated actual FEI show jumping courses, each one with its stride measured distance, and even going so far as to name the course designer for each course. This is a nifty detail. He actually asked permission from the course designers to use these courses in his game. There are a total of 30 accurate FEI courses in here, with each course having the proper striding distance, and that's a lot of effort to put in for a small indie game. This is all something that I can absolutely appreciate, and something that I don't think any game developer has ever done. So really, kudos to the developer. Now, when you select one of these courses, your first action is going to be to sit down and learn the layout and, of course, the striding between obstacles. You're going to check the jump order number, where you turn right, where you turn left, how sharp you have to turn, how many strides are in between each jump, of course, and if you're jumping a vertical, an oxer, a treble, or even a combination, which is 2 to 3 jumps one right after the other. The game's default is to not show you what jump is next. You can turn it on, which creates an arrow above the jump or an arrow on the right or left of the screen and an arrow above the jump, but the fact that it's turned off suggested to me that the developer is encouraging you to learn the course by yourself. And that is, again, kind of cool, because it leans into that realism. Walking the course is probably the most important part of show jumping. It's the point where you figure out strategy, where you consider difficult obstacles, check the time, and note areas where you can open up a bit to ensure for a clear and quick round. But this is where one of my biggest problems came in. The camera. I'll let the visual speak for itself. Holy shit, that's 8. Oof, so that's 8. And you go to 9, which is over here, and then you go to 10, which is going to be the triple combination. I never walked the course again because I got so nauseous I had to lie down. The reason is the slight sliding effect. It gets to you so quick. Please, horse game developers, please check the camera properly before releasing your game. This is the 3rd horse game that has a bad camera on launch, and I don't understand why. The Dramamine contract conspiracy is starting to look a lot more viable.
Stress? Am I talking about stress? Okay? I've stumbled onto a major company conspiracy, Mac. How about that for stress?
Now, the camera is, of course, not a problem for everyone, and it is a bit of a roulette with me for cameras, but please, no sliding and no tilting of the horizon. Those aren't unreasonable things to ask for, I feel. But there is a second problem with the camera that some horse games suffer from. I can't turn the camera to look at the next jump. Future Rattle here, the developer was kind enough to let me know that I can in fact turn the camera. The reason I missed this is twofold. One, I played with the keyboard and I didn't find any keys that turned the camera. And secondly, I can't read. So we're just going to skip my 2-minute rant about cameras and horse games, and so I will save you time, and then you can please pretend I didn't miss a gameplay feature while doing a review for a game. Capital. I will say the camera does offer a wide range of options. Options. One of the most interesting and most difficult was the top-down view. I really loved it, because it felt like watching a replay, something which the game does not have. There are many things in the universe we might never understand. But even if you do forget the course, the game does allow you to pause and let you look at the map of the course. So even if you're lost, you do still have guidance in-game. Now, to add to the difficulty, the horse is on a constant forward motion, meaning if you run through the obstacles or hit walls, the horse will never stop. This is both funny and seriously annoying. The control of the horse never felt agile as a result. You have to really hold in to slow its stride and turn sharp, which is not very realistic, because horses can turn on a damn dime at speed. Barrel racing being a good example. Whee! Another problem is you can technically ride the lower courses without adjusting your stride at all. I tested this on the first 2 levels. I barely adjusted stride. I just memorized the course, kept my horse at a decent pace, and Bob's your uncle, I got it clear. So it felt a little less interesting to me. However, during later courses this was not possible anymore. I had to constantly adjust stride to prevent myself from knocking poles. One point I just want to state here is that if you want to ride tougher courses, you have to go to the menu and select professional in the difficulty, then the rest of the courses will open up to you. This was pretty odd, but this is also where you can somewhat customize your character's model. I just found it a bit strange to put this in the options menu. I feel like the character creation should be in a separate menu, or something you select before starting the game. All of this feels a bit disjointed and odd, almost a menu that still needed to be reworked. A couple of quality of life features would be very welcome here, but back to the gameplay. You can also jump the incorrect obstacle, which will mean immediate disqualification, and that's also great. Again, very good reason to memorize the course. That's 4. Coming up. Okay. I don't remember where to go. It's also very realistic and adds a bit more of a challenge. However, sometimes when I brush close to a jump, the horse will just jump next to it, and I'll get disqualified. This is, I think, where space to jump is not that bad of an idea. Striding is great, but in this case, it does seem to react when I'm close to the jump sometimes. But this didn't happen a lot, and really I think I'm just a bad rider. But the constant forward motion of the horse and the running through obstacles and the randomly jumping between obstacles means that you don't have any refusals, which is another issue. Refusals are a huge part of the FEI. If you're going to try and capture the feeling of show jumping, then that should be part of your game. I really wish we had refusals, but because the horse is on a constant forward motion, I don't know how they would go about that. I do remember a game that was made for the 2004 Olympics that had show jumping, and that horse was also at a constant forward motion, and they had refusals. They would simply reset the horse back a couple of paces and just restart you again. Could be something to consider, but that does create a stop-start situation for the game. It's just a thought though. Now the final point I will discuss is the controller problem. There is a known bug where if you turn the horse, the curvature will continue to turn, as shown here. My god, did I get sick. I switched over to keyboard damn fast, which did help a lot, but unfortunately, the keyboard is not as refined and quick as the controller, so I had a slightly more difficult time turning the horse, but not to such a degree that it ruined the experience, but I did felt it took away from it. I would suggest, if you can, play it with a controller. It did seem a bit more refined and a bit more difficult. I will add, during the production of this video, I spoke to the developer and I mentioned this problem. He gave me a solution. I had to plug in my controller with a USB cable and not connect it with Bluetooth. However, I couldn't get this to work, so I just continued with the keyboard. Then one day, I just got a message and he's like, oh, by the way, I added a little option in the menu. Let me know if this helps the controller problem. And I was like, yeah, this actually made the experience a bit better. I didn't fix it entirely, but the fact that he went through that effort and contacted me and everything was actually sincerely appreciated. But with the gameplay done, let's get into the only part you guys ever want to hear about, the horses. Each horse is based off of an actual FEI champion with slightly altered names. I just love this. Galopet de Rouet is of course Balopet de Rouet. Pilot Blue is Plot Blue. Casali is Castle Ask, and Sandra Girl is Sandra Boy. There are a few more, but that's really the idea. These horses reflect real horses that actually exist, and I got silly giddy. Each horse has 5 statistics: technique, balance, agility, sensitivity, and temperament, and you should be able to figure out exactly how this is going to work. Technique, as stated before, is the horse's ability to adjust its stride before a jump. Balance is how easy it is to keep the horse balanced. Agility is how easy you can turn the horse. Sensitivity is how quickly the horse will respond to your commands. And temperament is how hot or fast the horse will naturally run. Some horses will have a faster pace than others. And that's really it. The horses move fine. You can certainly feel the difference in the horse types and abilities. So everything here is great. I had very little problem with this. My only real gripe with the horses is that there aren't any white horses. I'd love to see a white horse in the roster just because they look so damn pretty in the arenas. I want a white horse. But I love the fact that these horses are based on real horses. It gives another layer to the game, which already has a layer thanks to the FEI courses that this guy realistically built for us. There is unfortunately no horse creation here, and there are only 8 horses to choose from at this point, but these horses do cover a wide range of ability, which offers some replayability. Now there is one more part to gameplay, which is course creation and exercise creation. In this section of the game, you can, more than likely guess, design a course or design an exercise for you to take part in. I tried both of these, and it's a lot harder than it looks, but it is quite fun. I ended up making a course that was basically impossible to completely clear, and although I had a lot of fun writing it, it did give me a new appreciation for the difficulty of designing courses. You can select the jump height, position, style, and if it's part of a combination. When you place jumps close to each other, the game will automatically measure stride distance, which is a great help. Once you've completed your grand design, you can add it online and other players can attempt it. I have added my own course, the curving. I want to see if anyone gets a clear. I am challenging all of you. I couldn't get a clear and I designed it, so good luck. I mentioned at the start of this video that I wanted to discuss when a game is ready to be released, and Pro Show Jumping, I believe, is a great example of a game that still needed some time in the oven before that. The gameplay and concept for the game is great, but that's really what it feels like. A great base for a game still to come. It needs more features, more concepts or variation to ensure it can keep the attention of the audience it wants to entice, especially if it wants to validate its price tag. The game sits currently at a $25 price tag, and I still think it's too much. Like I said, it's a good concept that needs a lot more to be considered a good game. A novelty or a pastime, which should not cost that much. Now, with that being said, I also want to chat about passion. The developer is a big fan of show jumping and horse movement. He made this kinetic horse from scratch, and that in of itself shows a serious dedication in trying to understand horse movement and animation. It's fascinating to see a passion manifest like this, and that's why I can't really throw out Pro Show Jumping. Despite its flaws, there is clearly something there. The dev made a game because he was passionate about a subject, and that is really awesome. Making a game with the right intentions from the start is already the best first foot you can put down for a project. Just make sure that the price fits the product.